Shalom, this is Rabbi Yitzhak Levi unveiling Torah truth on a weekly basis. Thank you for allowing us to come to your homes and share the Word of God with you. If you like our program and would like to support it, we have songs that we would like to have people buy from us or from the television station. We have Yeshua the Lamb, the Lion. We have the book of Genesis, and we have the book of Noah. These are Torah portions that I write commentary. And finally we have May the Real Paul Come Forth. This portion is called Vayechi. Obviously it's talking about Joseph. And we will find some interesting things about the story of Joseph. Just whenever you think you read it and you got it figured out and you heard other people talk about it, all of a sudden you're going to find out that there is more. There is more to the story of Joseph. As people, we are very easily and quick to judge others. And without a doubt, it would be easy for us to make a judgment call on the outcome of the story of Joseph, since we have the start and the end of the story. So it's very easy for us to read it and come to a conclusion thinking that this is exactly what happened to Joseph. Well, that's not what happened to Joseph. In our case, we just have a few pages to read from the beginning to the end, and we know the story. But Joseph did not know what the brothers told their father. He does not know what part does Yaakov had in his sale to Egypt as a slave. He has no idea. In his mind, he's wondering, okay, I'm your favorite son, that's what you keep telling me, and you made me a coat of stripes, and then you sent me to look for my brothers. And when I go to meet with them, they gang up on me, and they tackle me, and they throw me in a dry well. So, we know the outcome. But Joseph has no idea. So he goes to a country that he's never been to. He's young, only 17 years old. He goes to a land with different language and different customs. And he's confused, and he no doubt is frightened. But if we could get into Joseph's mind just for a little bit and understand his behavior and why. All he knows is that he was jumped by his brothers, stripped off his coat. After all, wasn't the coat one of the reasons, the jealousy? They stripped him off his coat, threw him in a dry well, and sold him as a slave to Ishmaelites. Now, in his mind, I will give my father the benefit of the doubt, assuming he did not really know this is going to happen to me. Why doesn't he write? Why doesn't he send a search party to look for me? After all, surely he knows that I am in Egypt. But no letters, no messengers, no search party. The conclusion is, my whole family is in on it. And yes, they all hate me. Why do they hate me? Because I'm a dreamer. Because I dream and I tell them my dreams. Here we come to shorten the story. We find that Jacob lives his final years in Egypt, How long? 17 years. He spent 17 years before he passes away. So, Yosef was 17 years old when he began this journey, and Jacob spends 17 years at the end of his journey. Yosef was gone for 20 years before he appeared to his brothers. Yeshua was gone for 2,000 years. Obviously, there is no zeros in the Torah. If we believe that Yosef was the shadow of Yeshua, then here is another evidence that Yeshua is even at the door. Just as 20 years passed before he got to meet his brothers, if we assume this number to be correct, it's 2,000 years since Yeshua left. It is time for him to come and meet his brothers. Yaakov bows down because he found out that even in captivity, as a slave, even in the dungeon, and even as the prince of the superpower of the world, Yosef did not assimilate, but remained true to his God. Genesis chapter 49, verse 29. Chesed ve'emet, mercy and truth, is required. And so who is Chesed? Who is the truth? It is Abraham. He was truth. And what about mercy? Mercy comes from Yitzchak, Isaac. We need to have those two patriarchs in order for Yaakov, Jacob, to be united with his fathers. Chapter 49, verse 29, I am to be gathered to my people, referring to the patriarchs. He is stating that the nation will not be complete without his union. Since Abraham was the spirit figure, that puts him up here, the spirit, and Yitzchak, Isaac, is the breath, or this muscle here called the soul, then Jacob, Yaakov, is the body. Yaakov is the limbs of that body. Verse 30, I will lie with my fathers, he doesn't mention his wives. He doesn't mention I'm going to lie with my mothers, but he speaks of I will lie with my fathers. Nations and civilizations are born through man. As it says in Genesis, and Abraham born Isaac, and Isaac born Jacob, and Jacob born the nation of Israel. A seed cannot produce unless it dies first, and then it yields 100-fold. The fathers are dead. Now we see the increase of a nation. All three fathers, the patriarchs, are dead. Now it's time to see the fruit. Genesis 48, Yaakov blesses the two boys to be like Reuven and like Shimon. Reuven, the firstborn of Yaakov, and Shimon. And both have an interesting name. Reuven is behold the son, and Shimon is one who listens. And yet both were opposite of their names. Shimon was a temperamental person who with his brother Levi went to the village and slaughtered all the men after they have circumcised themselves. And yet Yaakov blesses the two boys to be like Reuven and like Shimon, considering the blessing those two got was not very favorably, since Reuven was not to be trusted with honoring someone else's property, and Shimon was a loose cannon when angered, yet he is to be and to produce what? According to the blessing of Yaakov, school teachers and educators. Yosef was the youngest of his brothers, but was the firstborn of Rachel. By blessing the sons, Yosef receives a double portion and gets the status of Bechor. Bechor is firstborn, or the one chosen, the firstborn son. The firstborn does not only inherit the wealth, but also the challenges and the conflict in life. In this case, Yosef's coat of stripes was one of the reasons his brothers hated him. Why didn't our father make us a special coat? Now I know in many theologians in churches and so forth, they keep describing it as a coat of many colors. No, it is not the rainbow. Specifically, it says in the Hebrew, a coat of stripes. Why? Because Yaakov, he was not a chemist. He did not go out and make some dyes and began to color each stripe. No, he just cut the stripes and sewed them. And what you have is a coat of stripes. So Yosef was thrown in the dungeon and sold, possibly because of his coat of stripes. And what happened to Yeshua? Well, those stripes allude to the stripes on Yeshua's back. Deuteronomy 21:17. But he shall acknowledge the firstborn by giving him a double portion of all that he has, for he is the firstfruits of his strength. The right of the firstborn is his. A firstborn son was entitled to receive twice the inheritance of that the father had, while the other sons, they were only given gifts and sent away. In addition to the right of succession, the very name Bechor, firstborn, yields such an honor and prestige for a son in his family. Colossians 1:15-17. He is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. For by him all things were created, both in the heavens and on the earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities. Things have been created through him and for him. He is before all things, and in him all things hold together. When I teach the Torah, I view the Torah as the glue that glues us to our God. Listen, if you're a believer and you live your life according to Torah, that would not be normal in today's society. They will laugh at you. They will ridicule you. How can you talk about a God, invisible God? We've never heard of him. You've never seen him. How do you worship the unknown? It is the Torah that glues us to God. Isaiah 61:7 promises a double portion of joy and blessing upon Israel. Instead of your shame, there shall be a double portion. Instead of dishonor, they shall rejoice in their lot. Therefore, in their land they shall possess a double portion. They shall have everlasting joy. The reign of Mashiach, the Messiah, during the millennium will occasion everlasting joy. So we have here two implementations, one of Jacob and one of Israel. One can only imagine the horror that came upon Yosef when he saw the younger get the blessing. It must have brought terrible memories of his own conflict with his brothers that ended him in slavery and prison. Something he tried so hard to forget. He went as far as even naming his own son, the first son, Menashe, wanting to forget. And here we go again. The father is crossing his arms and blesses the younger before the elder. Another episode of brothers' conflicts. Yet something interesting took place, first of its kind in the Torah. There was not a hint of controversy or conflict between the brothers. When Jacob blessed the two lads and crossed his arms, there was no envy, there was no animosity, there was no jealousy. There was not a hint of controversy. It is as if they were prepared from God, that this is how it has to happen. And for this we find a powerful statement made by Jacob. He says, "In your name will Israel pronounce this blessing." Obviously, if you've been to Israel, or if you know some Jewish families, you know that the blessing every Sabbath, every Friday night, as the father blesses his sons. And what does he say? "May you be as Ephraim and as Menashe." May God make you like Ephraim and Menashe. So he put Ephraim ahead of Menashe based on chapter 48, 13 to 14, and 17 till 20. He goes on to say, "The angel who redeemed me from all evil shall bless the lads, and let my name be called upon them together with the name of my father Abraham and Yitzchak." So now the blessing of the patriarchs, all three of them, fall on Ephraim and Menashe. They were half-breeds. From Yosef, they were Hebrew. From his wife, Osnat, they were Egyptians. So we see that the kingdom of God is, yes, open, even for the Gentiles, based on Ephraim and Menashe. There was no blessing over Jews outside of Israel that united the lads as part of Israel, except through the existing covenant of all three patriarchs. "And may they be like fish," he continues. What kind of blessing is that? May they be like fish, not like deer or doe, a lion, an eagle. May they be like fish, multiplying within the land. Chapter 48, verse 16. See, there were no fish on board of Noah's ark. Did you ever ask that question? Why? The reason is because the fish was not corrupted by the deeds of man. Fish did not live with man, whereas the animals and the birds, they lived, they saw, they experienced the pollution of man. The fish survived the storm in their own habitat. In fact, the numeric value for fish, which is Dag, Dalet, Gimel, is 7. It speaks as fish being saints. Looking at their number in the wilderness, one can see that their numbers were not greater than the rest of the tribes. Menashe and Ephraim, their tribes were no bigger than the rest of them. So the blessing is for after they enter the promised land. But if now that we know so much from Torah and from the prophets, we see that he talks about Menashe and Ephraim not only in the land of Israel, but throughout the world. There are Gentiles coming home, leaving their past doctrines and religions. All religions are man-made. They're coming home to the Hebraic roots, searching and seeking God's truth. Yes, the Menashe and Ephraim are coming home. The brothers think that perhaps now at least Yosef will take revenge on them for their mistreatment of him decades earlier. You should think, you sold me. God sent me, was his response. While they're taking the blame on themselves, thinking we're the culprits, his response is one of generosity and of love. No, you did not sell me. It was God who sent me to prepare for the hard times. He forgives them and proclaims that God intended it for good, to bring him to power in Egypt in order to save the family. There's no doubt why Yeshua is not here with us today. I hope you don't misunderstand me. But he went to heaven, and this is metaphorically, he went to Egypt to prepare a place for us for the hard times that are coming on earth. Chapter 50, verse 15 to 19. I can almost hear Israel's cry. We sold you to the Ishmaelites. Yeshua's response, God sent me. Same response as Yosef. There is two ways to look at the coin of our lives. Many times they appear to be hardships, when in fact they are ordained from God for a greater purpose. We may not know the plans of God. What is most remarkable of all is Yosef's lack of bitterness toward his brothers. You know, Yeshua was betrayed by his own, and he was nailed on the tree by the Gentiles. And yet, what does he say? Abba, forgive them, for they know not what they do. So based on this, we already know how Yeshua will feel towards his brothers, Israel, at his return. To their fear, Yosef responds, do not fear. For am I in the place of God? Yosef knew his place. He knew he wasn't God, and that God has an exclusive claim on certain people, which includes Yeshua. Since Yeshua's return will be during a time of unimaginable conflict the world has ever known, I really believe for the first time it's going to be a nuclear, because the scripture tells us that people will be stripped of their skin while they're standing. Their eyes will melt. There's no conventional weapons that can do that. The heat of nuclear is in the thousandth degree, and it will strip the skin. Revelation 1:7, John 19:37, Jeremiah 31 verse 9, and Zechariah 12:10 may come true. And I will pour out on the house of David, and the inhabitants of Jerusalem, a spirit of grace and plead for mercy, so that when they look on me, on him whom they have pierced, they shall mourn for him as one mourns for only son. Well, the word here is bechor, firstborn, chosen, and weep bitterly over him as one weeps over a firstborn. Bechor or Bachar, he was chosen by his father. Zechariah 8:3, thus says the Lord, I have returned to Zion and will dwell in the midst of Jerusalem, and Jerusalem shall be called the faithful city, and the mountain of Adonai of hosts, the holy mountain. The golden years of Yaakov's life was when he was surrounded by his own sons and grandsons in shalom, in peace and tranquility. Genesis 47:1. Yeshua, our Yosef, offers the Goshen of heaven to his brothers, as it is preserved and approved by his father. Just like it was Pharaoh's choice to give the Goshen to Yosef's parents, it is God's perfect will to give to Yeshua's brothers the best of heaven. Yeshua said, "It is not mine to give," in Matthew 20 and verse 23. The brothers are strangers and different than the Egyptians. Yosef introduced 5 of them to Pharaoh to kiss his hand, intending to put honor upon them among the Egyptians, just as Yeshua will present us to his God, to his Father. The brothers were presented to Pharaoh according to the instructions which Yosef had given them. Genesis 46:33. Pharaoh will ask, "What is your business?" Genesis 47:3. They answered, "They were shepherds." One of the questions we will be asked by our God is, what was your occupation on earth? What will be our answer? Pharaoh asked because he does not want any parasites in his kingdom. God does not want any parasites in his kingdom. God despises the lazy or the selfish. His kingdom is for the shepherds, the ones who lead and care for the welfare of God's flocks, the ones who care for other souls to participate in the relationship and union with Adonai. Remember Matthew 7:21, "Not everyone that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but that the one that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven." So let us be not hearers only, let us be doers for the King to accept us with open arms. Until next time, shalom, shalom.